Item number 1, presentation by County Clerk Kathy M. Garrett on the office's operations and efficiencies.
All right, very good. Welcome, Madam Clerk. How are you today? Good. Is your mic on? Make that little green button on at the bottom.
I'm on now.
Okay, very good. Good morning, ma'am.
All right.
Our clerk requested to come before us to just discuss operations over at the clerk's office. As many of you know, and hopefully you've been able to visit, 400 Monroe is absolute success, doing very well with the space there, with the efficiency on how well they operate it. I went over there as just a citizen and was very pleased on how quickly things moved and how efficient and polite and courteous the staff was. So if you haven't had a chance to go to 400 Monroe, please do that. But she wants to discuss some items and make us aware of some things. I'm sure all of us get her weekly or bi-weekly news briefings on what's going on at the clerk's office, but it's been a moment since she's been before us all. So this is an opportunity to discuss the clerk's office. So Madam Clerk, I'll turn it over to you.
Let me say good morning again, and I thank you for this opportunity. I'll give you a brief update. I know you haven't gotten my letter in the past couple of weeks because I knew that we were coming over here. But we have 60 vacancies in the clerk's office. At this time, 21 of them are court clerks, and it will be 22 by the end of this week. So as of January of 2024, we have had 5 resignations from court clerks, and all of those have been at Frank Murphy Hall of Justice. And let me just say, I'm here advocating, but by no means am I solely advocating for just the court clerks. I advocate for all the staff in the county clerk's office, but for obvious reasons, the court clerks are the ones that are front and center. Oz has a video that I hope that you all will just appease me. It's a very short video compared to all that we have. We have hours of testimonies. The staff, the court clerks have been wearing the administrators out. They've been calling me. They've been emailing me because they are also extremely frustrated, and understandably so. And so they wanted to come over and have an opportunity to testify before you all, but guess what? There's nobody to cover for them, so they couldn't come.
Mm-hmm.
So I just selected I think this is the first set of court clerks, but as I said, we have hours, and it's not just the court clerks, because you must understand there's different levels to help get that into the courtroom so that the court clerk can do her job. You have case initiation. You have the individuals in the file rooms that have to combine all the records. So it's not all about the court clerks, but they wanted you to hear from them. And I feel that as the clerk of the office, that is only appropriate. And again, I'm very thankful that you allowed this opportunity.
While that's loading up, you said there are 5 resignations in this from Frank Murphy. By any chance, were exit interviews given as to why that happened? Why they resigned?
Madam Chair, yes, exit interviews are done, but they let you know up front why they're leaving. And again, it's about wages and benefits. And as I've said before, we're competing in the same zip code. And I sent to you what was sent to me last week, whereas right here at 36th District, their court clerks start out at $44,926 and some change. Wayne County's court clerks start out at $38,028. That's what they make. So same zip code, same type of work. Even though, you know, with Third Circuit, largest court in the state of Michigan, higher volume of work, but they're the least paid. So, and the fact that the staff is aware of that is no secret. So you can only imagine what that does for morale, the revolving door, et cetera. So.
Okay,
All right.
gotcha. So again, while we're waiting, we can talk a little bit. And I do know that the administration is well aware of that, and there have been talks to increase those salaries We just have to wait that, and hopefully it'll be within the next 45 days that will happen. Because I know they're aware, they agree with you that they should be paid at least as much as 36 District Court. We all agree with that. Obviously, they need to be at least in the same a higher load.
And the fact,
Mhm.
I'm glad that there's finally some movement that is happening,
Mhm.
but I'm sure everyone at this table and probably in this room can understand the frustrations. I've been beating the drum beyond 3 years, but definitely 3 years consistently
Mhm.
sharing with this body as well as the administration, the dire straits that the office is in. And people are leaving. They're getting out of there. And then the thing of it is the customers, so to speak, that we service, like with the expungement programs, et cetera, they're hiring our people
Wow.
because they know the process. And guess what? I'm offering you 57,000 versus the 38 that you're making.
Wow.
So,
57. Wow.
but anyway,
Yeah.
you
No.
pulling scabs all off. So I'm trying to, let me pull myself back in.
We do understand, Madam Clerk, and we hear your frustrations. And again, while we're waiting, have you been apprised of what the process is for hiring with your 60 vacancies? Do you know where people are in the pipeline for that?
As you see on the letters that I send, and we even have our personnel officer here, she wanted to come to share that even if we're at the stage of offering positions to individuals, sadly, when they find out what the pay scale is, it's like, thank you, but no thank you.
Mm.
So we really don't have anyone at this point that is applying for them.
Okay,
So I'm hoping once that salary is pumped up, we won't be able to take them off.
for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. And again, while we're waiting for the video, are there any questions from commissioners while we wait? Any questions, comments, concerns? Okay. Commissioner Hedges, microphone, sir, please.
Effective services.
In answer to your question, yes, it is. And it's not just the court clerks, the administrators, the managers, the supervisors, they're all inside the courtrooms to help with the dockets themselves. And the fact, yeah, it's pressure.
So it's very important to keep up with the demand and to serve the people in Wayne County to deal with that issue and see how can we resolve it together. I hope this meeting would accomplish that.
I hope something will accomplish it. And the fact with people and even the fact that there's no updates, there's no response to my letters, there's nothing. And so when you have a staff of people that are coming to you asking, it's embarrassing and it's sad that I haven't heard anything. No one's saying anything. So just know that Wayne County is about to be on the map, and not for a good reason, but people are tired and they're frustrated. And when you have other opportunities, you're going to take them. And I'm sorry we're having technical difficulties
Yeah.
because
So maybe what we'll do is, if it's a video, if they can't get it up, we'll ask them to email the video to us so that we can view it.
give them one more chance. And maybe we'll send them to you piece by piece, because I'm telling you, there's a lot of testimonies.
Yeah.
This one is only a little less, or about 10 minutes. But, and not just from the court clerks, as I said, from those other entities, individuals that work in case initiation. They all wanted you to hear from
Mhm.
them.
And we will. So what we'll do is we'll have that sent to us. And then also, again, I know there's another meeting that Mr. Seals will be taking part of with Ms. Allen. And again, we're hopeful that there'll be some resolve in the very near future with the salary, because that's very important. And again, as you mentioned, if they're making 38,000 and their neighbors are making 44, that doesn't, I mean, we have to compete, we have to compete on all levels of our employment. So that's especially with the court clerks, because without the clerks, the courts obviously can't operate. So we want to make sure that that happens.
This is unbelievable.
And yeah, so we do have a long agenda today, but we'll make sure that we get those,
So
that video.
I only had 10 minutes.
Yeah.
That's
We
all?
got-
That's all I had was 10 minutes.
Well, 10 minutes, ma'am. But we have another question.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to ask the question. I
Okay.
know
Don't know how.
there was a work group formed, and I'm just wondering what was the outcome of that? Did it address
Say it
anything?
again now.
The work task force was
Yes.
put together.
Mhm.
Anything come of that for the clerk's office?
Absolutely. A matter of fact, I don't know what we can do. Ms. Allen has her hand raised, but I don't know if we can get her. Can she hear us,
Good
Darcel?
morning.
It was
This is
submitted to
Janelle Allen.
the
I can hear you if you can hear me.
CEO.
Yes.
No.
I don't know how we can get Ms. Allen on the line. Go ahead, tell her, to go ahead and speak. We can hear her.
Okay. Good morning. Can you hear me? This is Janelle Allen.
Commissioners get what the work group came up with or task force came up with?
I believe so, but I can resend
Recommendations.
it to you.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I can resend it to you.
Okay. Thank you.
But that was certainly on there about salaries, because that was made apparent to us a year ago.
What were the findings from the?
I
Yes.
said, we'll get a copy to the commissioners. We'll forward you a copy as well. There were several items. So that, of course, was one of them. Well, salary increase across the board was one of them.
Also,
Yes.
Madam Chair,
Mhm.
and to our clerk, my understanding is this is slowing down the process in the court system because you don't have the number of people that you need for the court clerks. In my understanding from one of the local judges that I spoke to 6 months ago, I guess. And he mentioned that it's a problem getting court dates. Now, I don't know if that's still a problem or not, but this could be complicating that even further.
Well, it could
you
be,
can't-
it could be. And as I explained, you look at the judicial system as like four wheels on a car.
Mhm.
So as many individuals as the sheriff jails, as many.
Testing. This is
clerks and
Janelle.
those individuals that have to get it to the point of the courtroom. If you don't have that service, then you don't have a well
hear
operating
me.
vehicle, do you? So, but, all right, well, this is in this high-tech building that we can't get it going. I am gonna ask you, for the sake and the respect of this staff, I'm asking, we're gonna send it to you. Please listen to it, and the fact that we'll keep inundating you with more and more because we have them. And the fact that I have said to a nameless person, we've talked, we've met, we've talked. It's about action now.
I agree. No one disagrees that we know that you have been pounding this drum for a very long time, sticking up for your employees, and that is what you're expected to do. We appreciate that, and we just have to make sure that we act on this end. And I know that there are talks still going on, but it's time for action. And I know that Ms. Allen is Ms. Allen, I'm referring to Janelle Allen, is very wants to get this done quickly as possible. And she understands that this is not acceptable to have these rates.
Well, it's
Good
been
morning again. This is Janelle. Can you hear me?
that this has been worked on,
Yeah.
but it's still a sad commentary
Yeah.
that I've been sending letters,
Mm.
and no one has said anything to me. So I'm asking, you don't have to respect me as a person, but I'm asking that you respect the position that the people elected me to be in, because everybody got the letter,
Right.
but nothing to say. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you so
and you
much,
will
Madam
get the
Clerk.
video.
Please get the video to us. Absolutely. We want to hear what our employees are saying, and we want to fix this as promptly as possible. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you, Mr. Seals. That's fine. No. we're good. All right. Thank you. Oh, I feel like I can't hear. Can you all hear? All right.
You're on.
All right. Thank you. Next item, please,
Item number,
is read the presence.
item number two, discussion on it. Item number two, discussion on a sole source professional services contract with Medical Debt Resolution, Inc., DBA, RIP Medical Debt.
Okay. This is a discussion item. There are some kinks being worked out that hopefully we'll have resolved by next week's meeting. However, this is medical debt resolution. I'm going to let Dr. Essayed speak to it. However, this is something that came to me last year, actually, about this time last year at the NACO conference, speaking to one of the commissioners from Oakland County. They spoke to what they were doing to address medical debt of the residents in Oakland County. And I'm glad we are now to a point here in Wayne County that we can do the same thing. But I'll let Dr. Essayed talk about exactly what this is and how we can assist those in Wayne County. Go ahead, Dr. Essayed.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't have Zoom, do we?
We'll
No.
have nothing right now, looks like.
All right.
Do we have anything with Zoom? We do not? We do have Zoom? Okay, can we
We do
Zoom?
have Zoom. Okay, so
Why not?
our proposed vendor is on Zoom, so I just want to make sure that commissioners can hear from them as well. Dr. Abdul Al-Sayed, Director, Health Officer, Wayne County Department of Health, Human and Veteran Services. I just want to open up with some stats that I think should send a shudder down all of our spines, which is that Wayne County is the county with the 8th largest burden of outstanding medical debt in the country. And that means that about 14.5%, nearly 1 in 6 Wayne County residents holds outstanding medical debt. And I just want to be clear about what outstanding medical debt means. You know, there are a lot of decisions that folks make in their financial lives. They may choose to renovate a house. They may choose to pay for college, and they may choose to buy a car. Now, those things may put them in a position where they will borrow money against their needs or their wants. And then, you know, they may struggle to pay it back later. But the difference between medical debt is it is in effect debt that is incurred at the proverbial edge of a gun, right? This is a situation where you only go to see a doctor when you are worried for your life or your function or that you're plagued by profound pain. And so this is debt that folks took to relieve themselves of a circumstance that could potentially have killed them. And for 14.5% of folks who live in our county, that has left them with crippling debt. Now, what happens when you have medical debt? It means that a healthcare system or a clinic will hound you. They may sell that debt off to a debt collector who will destroy your credit. And that will burden your capacity to be and do in our economic lives in some pretty profound ways. With low credit, that's going to hamper your ability to take on a loan to potentially buy a house or start a new business. And so you think about the albatross that medical debt imposes on the lives of Wayne County residents. And you think about the fact that 1 in 6 carries it, and you start to appreciate the staggering consequence for the well-being of our county of this debt. I'm not going to talk much about the increasing price of healthcare, but that really is what has been driving this debt crisis. And just recently, in the last year, new research shows that the majority of people with outstanding medical debt were insured. What do you think about that? They had health insurance, but the price of deductibles, the price of copays meant that they couldn't pay the additional cost sharing on top of the insurance they already had. And that's the circumstance a lot of folks find themselves in. So I say all this, right, because I know that there would be questions that folks might ask. Well, why is it the county's responsibility to try and relieve medical debt? Well, because medical debt is a public good problem. It is an albatross on our county, and we have an opportunity here to address it. Now, I want to talk about the innovation that RIP Medical Debt, the vendor that we're proposing to contract with, has offered. Usually when a healthcare system has a situation where there's a patient who's incurred a debt, what they'll do is they'll try and collect on it. The minute that they cannot collect that debt, the value of that debt goes down because the probability that that debt ever gets paid goes down. right? So if you think about the value of debt, it is both the nominal value of the debt multiplied by the probability that that debt ever gets paid. All right, so it's a 50% probability on a $10,000 debt. The value of that debt is $5,000. And over time, more and more effort goes into trying to collect a smaller and smaller potential outcome here. So rather than sell to debt collectors, what this organization has proposed is that they would go and they would negotiate the value of that debt so that they can pay down debt on behalf of folks who are eligible. And that's defined here as people who earn less than 400% of the federal poverty line or whose debt is greater than 5% of their annual income. And so what they'll do is they'll say, listen, instead of you selling this to a debt collector and ruining thousands of people's lives, we will buy that debt for literally a penny on the dollar. So we're talking about a $5 million proposed contract here. The estimate suggests that there's about $700 million of outstanding medical debt in this county, right? The better part of $1 billion, okay? And what we're proposing here is the opportunity to pay down the vast majority of that. And that is a big deal. And it's not just a big deal for the individuals, the 14.5% of people we serve. It's a big deal for this county as well. All of the lives and livelihoods that are made free from the fact that somebody got sick and did the very thing of trying to get health care for themselves or a loved one and then had their economic future ruined over it. So that's what we're proposing here today. We feel that this is an opportunity that we cannot pass up. We've seen multiple municipalities do exactly the same thing, most notably Oakland County just north of us, but also New York City, Cook County in Illinois, the state of Connecticut, all working with the same organization to do this. It is our turn, and I think it's an opportunity for us to really serve our communities.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Kinlock?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I remember when you brought this proposal, the idea before the budget hearings. So this is your recommendation for actually implementing it. I know, but based on our conversation, you absolutely found an organization that would be charging quite less than what we thought would possibly be the cost associated with implementing it. So I'm glad that we're here now. You did say that you will be bringing it back to us with a specific vendor. And so, looking forward to this program being implemented.
And I'm sorry, I was talking to staff. How many persons will this benefit in Wayne County approximately?
So that number varies, but when you look at the overall debt burden, you're talking about 14.5% of our population, right? So if you do the math, you're talking about nearly 300,000 people, if I've got that math right.
Okay. And to roll this out, the company medical debt resolution, they go through all of the bills of the persons addressed in Wayne County, then is it income based? How do they decide on who benefits?
So it is income based. Let me just lay out the transaction. We would enter into this contract. It would authorize them to use $5 million over 2 years of county funds to negotiate with healthcare companies to pay down debt for folks who are eligible. So the folks who are defined as eligible are that they live in Wayne County and that they earn less than 400% of poverty, or that the sum total of their outstanding debt is greater than 5% of their annual income.
Okay. All right, some questions, Commissioner Marecki, then Commissioner Melissa, then Commissioner Baydun.
Thank you. Are we voting on something today?
No,
Oh, okay. And we haven't gotten any information on this, and I started doing some research yesterday, so I have some questions. And I don't know if this is the appropriate time.
yes, it is.
Okay,
Mhm.
because I didn't know if this is
Because
coming.
if the contract is complete, it will be on next Thursday's full board.
Okay, please bear with me
Sure,
then. I mean,
absolutely.
all I found was stuff on the internet. So, so first of all, where's the $5 million coming from?
So it'd be 87% indigent funding. So that's cigarette tax, airport tax, predominantly airport tax. And then it would be 13% post ARPA general funds dollars.
Okay. All right. Now, this company gets a lot of donations. Are we going to see a list of where the donations come from? is that public information?
So they're a 501c3, so technically, yes, all
Okay.
their donations are public information. And they leverage their donations to subsidize their overhead. So
Okay.
they're able to offer the service that they offer to us for substantially cheaper than otherwise it might cost. You know, you think about all of the financial folks and lawyers that you'd have to negotiate these big contracts. So they offer it at a discount. That's where their donations go. They do rely on contributions from municipalities, right, to be able to do this service for municipalities. So, we would be paying a substantially lower overhead than is actually the cost of operating their business. And that's where the
And
donations-
that was my next question. I'm not going to use the word administration. Ask her. Do that up, but what kind of fees out of the 5 million? What percentage of that will go towards their fees?
So that's specified in the contract. I do want to ask if we can hear Keith Pearl, who is our liaison with,
You mean all your retirement funds?
Yes, I am here.
would be on
I
Zoom.
know they do.
Trying to do something real quick to see if we can get him.
Dr. El Sayed, yes, I am here.
See you guys over there. Why they keep turning me off?
I can ask the next question if
Sure.
you're.
Yes.
Okay, does this company help people out at all before they get to this point of being in medical debt? And the next part of that is after the debt is paid, do they have a program for people to help them stay out of debt? Because what do we do in 2 more years? Are you guys going to come back and say, hey, by the way, it's back up there. We need another 5 million. to
I
help
watch
everybody
it
get
for the
out of
screens to come on.
We intend this to be a one-time goal. When it comes to the goal of making healthcare more affordable, I wish there was more we could do at the county level. In fact, I would argue that our Health Choice program, which offers a very affordable insurance-like product to small businesses, is really the best thing we do, and it's a pretty unique program that I think is actually really awesome.
We
in
should have
terms of
stood up, Ms. Garrett,
what-
and spoke.
what our
You
county
should have
can
said,
do.
well, let
And
my staff
hopefully we'll
speak.
be talking to you in a couple of weeks about an expansion
You want me to go back?
where we'd like to leverage some of the post-ARPA funds that we have toward
Oh, can I
offering
speak on public?
a 6-month free insurance product for new small
No, can I
businesses to
speak
try
on
and
public?
spur business activity, given that insurance is really the hardest part of running a small business, and every small business owner will tell you that. So we want to be able to make those investments. The fact of the matter is that the rising cost of healthcare is a national challenge. And it is a national challenge that I think there are a lot of really great
Ms.
proposals
Buffington's on here.
around. I wrote a book on one of them. But for purposes of what a county can do,
When's the live comment?
this is an opportunity for
Public
us to try
comments,
and
the last one. You
legislate
wanna go back,
clean.
Tracy?
We don't intend this to be a multiple time affair. We intend to do this one time. But I do hope that this body, as we think about an investment of 5, potentially 7 million, if we were to extend, that we talk about why it is so important for action at the state and federal level to address the
You want me
broader
to
problem.
you want me to
because
pick up
it is
someone, take them
a broad
back?
Problem. And as I said, in a world where 50%
I can go
of
Stephanie,
all
who
medical
works
debt is
12
held by
hours a day.
people who are already insured,
About
it
overtime.
tells you that our insurance system is fundamentally failing. And, the idea that we're kind of left to all clean it up, right, in a situation like this is a problem, and it's a structural problem, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't clean it up. You see what I mean?
Yeah, I get that. Again, though, are people going to be able to have, and I totally agree with you. I mean, the expenses are out of control. But that's not going to be solved overnight. So are people going to be able to have some kind of help afterwards to try to avoid their medical debt again?
I'd love to explore that. That's not within the scope of the contract.
Okay.
I'd love to explore that. The hard part about sort of healthcare use education is that a lot of times people don't, if you've never had stable insurance, your understanding of what your entryway to the healthcare system is a function of what you've known in the past. So a lot of our costs are actually, and this is the paradox of American healthcare, is that when you don't have access to good primary care or even urgent care because you're not insured, The only place where you can get healthcare that you're not going to be turned away is an emergency room, where your healthcare is extremely expensive. And I'll be honest with you, I just had a situation at the end of last year where I had a set of symptoms and I was like, this could be something not problematic, or it could be like devastating. So let me go to the emergency room. And so I went to the emergency room as a pretty well-educated user of healthcare, and wound up in a situation where thankfully it wasn't serious. But I was sitting there hoping that it was actually the more serious thing, so I didn't get hit with like a $1,500 deductible. That's a crazy thing, right? And I'm sitting here betting, and my little brother's a resident at the hospital I went to. So he and I are sitting and be like, all right, what's the probability of this? What's the probability of that? And I'm like, man, I'm gonna get hit with a deductible. Like, I just wish they just hospitalized me, because then at least right, I wouldn't get hit with the deductible, which is a crazy thing, right? What an indictment on our healthcare system. Anyway, I'm waxing philosophical, but all of that is to say that it's really, like, user education on healthcare is really hard to do, because a lot of folks who've been locked out of healthcare institutions that are cheaper don't even know they exist because they've never been open to them.
And that brings me to my last comment. From my recollection, when the Affordable Care Act was passed, that was supposed to be a big part of it, educating people that they don't go to the emergency room. They should go to urgent care. And obviously that hasn't worked.
It hasn't. And, I don't think we're going to be able to change the norm until everyone has regular, consistent access to primary care, no matter who you are. And even then, we have a Medicaid system, which is a fantastic safety net. But here's the problem with safety nets. If you've ever been in a safety net, you get stuck in it. And if you're a Medicaid recipient, you are by definition a second or third class healthcare consumer. And so a lot of primary care doctors don't want to see you because you reimburse at half the rate. And so they're going to get half a check for seeing you. So why would they open space? So if they can fill with private insured customers, that's what they'll do. And so if you're in a situation where you ostensibly have health insurance, but no doctor wants to take your health insurance, then do you really have health insurance? Right? Because at some point, then you think about the cost of like calling around, trying to find the one clinic that's got space for Medicaid folks. And then they're the worst possible time. So like at 11:30, right? Or like 10 o'clock, you have to leave your shift and you're on Medicaid for a reason. So the whole thing is somewhat broken. So unless we actually build a comprehensive system, I really worry that it's even possible to do the kind of education that you're talking about. I hope that we can get there, but it's tough.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Did you still want to hear from Keith?
Yeah, if that.
Yeah.
Well,
Keith, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
What's your question? You remember your question? And if not, if you remember, we can come back.
No.
Okay, we'll come back. Write it down. I've been thinking of it, write it down, we'll come back.
I have it down, but I forget which bill.
Okay, all
Oh,
right.
the average medical bill, was that
Was
it?
that the average
Fees,
medical?
or that fees.
Oh, the fees. It was the fees.
The fees. The question was about
Administrative
the overhead.
Yeah, the
yeah.
overhead fees. I don't want to
Overhead
call them
fees, Keith.
administration fees, overhead fees.
Keith, you may speak now.
Hi, yeah, this is Keith Hurl. I'm with RIP Medical Debt. And we do have a 15% indirect cost rate.
High-tech building like
I
this.
know, right?
Hi, can you hear me at all?
Keith can't talk right now.
Thank you.
We'll put it in the writing. Thank you for trying. Lord have mercy. We have a list. Commissioner Dobbs and Baydun.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a really long list of questions, and I am just a little bit concerned about not having, anything on paper about this program and not having an analysis from our central staff.
It's not done yet. It's coming. That's when
Right.
at least have a conversation about it. Then that will be coming.
Yeah, so I would just I'd like to make a motion to send this to Health and Human Services Committee to have a full discussion on this program with the commission analysis before we move it to full board.
Support.
All right. There is a motion, and we're going to continue the conversation
Yes,
today.
yeah,
But
'cause I have-
do you want to wait? Let's wait till all the questions are done, and then we'll come back to your motion. That's okay. Does anyone have any objection to that? Is that okay, Madam Maker of the motion? Madam Maker of the motion? I don't know. Can we do that? Parliamentarian
Can we
procedures.
vote?
Okay, we have a motion
Okay.
and a support. Any discussion on the motion to send to Health and Human Services and back then to full
Back to-
board? Discussion?
Okay.
Commissioner Kinlott?
On this note, just wanted to say that this
No, that is just discussion.
Yes, so the doctor did present this proposal in general to the Ways and Means Committee. We approved $170 million as relates to a general appropriation. As it relates to this program, if you all can recall, we did have some extensive conversation and recommending for them to use the indigent airport tax surplus that has been sitting there for years. So if you recall, we had a lot of conversation about using this money that just been sitting in a pot for years, accumulating over time. This isn't something that I guess we're and then also when he came before the committee of whole, before he touched on this, so it's not something that's brand new. I think it's something that we're being brought up to speed as relates to the specific contract or specific vendor. But absolutely, I hope that the Health and Human Services Committee do its due diligence and get this back to us as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Discussion, Commissioner Clean?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I support the motion.
This is just a motion.
Commissioners around the table have a lot of questions, and we don't have anything in front of us. Yeah, we had general discussions, right? And we have to go back to the indigent care because that's one of my questions. If we're using indigent care for money for this, then this is not indigent health care. Paying off people's bills is a different kind of a category. So that's another issue. And I've been asking for a long time on how we are satisfying our charter requirements on indigent health care. And that's through the airport parking tax, and that's courts have decided that. But I can get absolutely no information about how we're spending that. And now I hear from the Chair of Ways and Means that somehow that's been piling up somewhere. So I think we need an accounting of that. Because we do have charter responsibilities for indigent health care, and I think the commission needs to know. And I think it's good that we take this intermediate step. It concerned me a lot to say we'll have a general discussion today with no paperwork in front of us, and we're going to vote on it next week with all the questions that are around. So I think this interim step, I agree with completely, and I'll be voting in favor of the motion. Thank you.
Can I respond to just the indigent point?
Sure.
When you go to the doctor, they give you a bill after you go to the doctor. Whether or not we were to pay that bill that day or pay that bill 100 days later, it would still be paying for healthcare. And given the fact that we're limiting to folks who meet the requirements of indigency, I just want to be clear, this is entirely paying for indigent healthcare.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner?
See this thing with no paperwork in front of us. First time you've mentioned that as we go through what all the debt is, only people that are indigent will qualify. Because there's a lot of folks that aren't indigent that are also staring. This is just like with people with jobs that have got to pay off their college loans. They're not necessarily indigent, but they're carrying debt. So what that definition is, and this is the first time it's come up, but I think also in preparation, because I'll be asking about it in committee if this motion passes, what is the accounting for whatever we have for indigent health care and how we have previously spent those dollars that were ordered by a court on indigent health care. And I think it would be real good for this commission to have a real good solid picture of that. Where has it been spent in the past? How much is there? Because this 5 million probably will not empty out the indigent healthcare responsibility. So what's still out there and what other kind of options do we have on spending that money and how it's been spent in the past? So it's good that we just go through this a lot more than just questions today without any paperwork and then boom, right to a vote. So I still support. Thank you, ma'am.
Just also a point, we weren't voting on anything today. This was just a discussion.
Correct.
Yep, so there was nothing, right? So that was an appropriate, this motion is appropriate, yeah.
On the motion to move to Health and Human Services, additional discussion? With the additional discussion on moving to Health and Human, Commissioner Anderson?
Oh, not I guess not on that. I had another question about post ARPA dollars.
Okay, we're going to talk about that. This is just on the motion to move to Health and Human Services. Commissioner Hayes?
Can't hear you, Al.
Microphone, please.
Al, you gotta bring the microphone right up to you.
Thank you. I
Can't
thought
be a
you,
foot away. 10 feet.
thought you could hear me loud and clear.
No.
Yeah, yes. No, my question was, is you facing any deadline or there anything could have any effect or because we here 15 commissioner, we could discuss and answer every question possible. If not, then the motion be in order.
There's no hard deadline. We'd like to move as fast as possible, obviously. I will say, we've been in extensive discussions with commission staff and we're working through a lot of these pieces. And so apologies that you didn't get the packet, but we've been working really hard to make sure everybody has all the information they need. So either way, we'll look forward to a robust discussion and go from there.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on the motion to move to Health and Human Services? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Clark Coleman. Yes. Commissioner Clementi,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd,
Yes.
Commissioner Hattis,
Yes.
Commissioner Colleen,
Aye.
Commissioner Kinlock,
Yes.
Commissioner Kenizic, Commissioner Marecki,
Yes.
Commissioner Baker McCormick,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yeah.
Vice Chair Pro Tem Baydun,
Yes.
Vice Chair Palomero.
Yes.
Chair Bell,
No?
motion carries.
All right, thank you. All right, so we're back to discussion on the item. So I do have a list on discussion and Commissioner Dobb had additional questions. Okay, go
Thank you,
ahead.
Madam Chair.
Oh, you're not, that was.
No,
Go ahead.
Stay here.
Not yet, not yet.
Okay, so without the analysis, just a couple of questions. How will this affect, so if someone gets their medical debt paid off through this program, will it affect any of like their benefits that they receive, like SNAP or WIC?
No,
Will that
those
have
are
any
those are
effect on that?
income-based,
Okay,
not wealth-based.
so this won't affect any of, like, when they file their taxes? It's not considered income?
No,
Okay.
it is, the transaction is not with them. They actually don't receive any funds. The transaction is with the healthcare system
Yeah.
that originated the debt. And then their ledger is wiped clean.
Okay,
So at no point are they receiving any funds.
okay.
And so it's not income.
So they don't need to report that on their taxes?
No.
Okay. This is coming through our health department. Will City of Detroit residents be eligible for this program?
Yes,
Okay,
it's on behalf of all of Wayne County.
okay,
It's not so, traditionally, anything essential local public health services, we divvy between the city and the rest of the county. This is not considered an essential local public health service. And so it would apply to everybody both in the city and outside the city.
okay. How are we gonna find these people?
So again, it's not a transaction with individuals, so you don't need to find them. They have ledgers open with the healthcare systems. The healthcare systems know who owe them debt. And so when RIP Medical enters into a transaction with the healthcare system, they do so on behalf of folks who meet these criteria. And then those folks will get a letter from the healthcare system and from RIP Medical saying your debt has been paid off.
Okay. So we are planning, if this gets approved, to put in $5 million into this program. And I can't remember how much you said we have for this group of people who owe money, but it's more than $5 million. So how are we going to determine the 5 million out of X amount that's over 5 million?
So you can imagine there's at the center of this is a negotiation between RIP Medical and the healthcare systems. And you can imagine some of the healthcare systems are going to be a lot faster to say, yeah, absolutely, we'd love to do this. And some of them may say, we got to analyze it a little bit more. So it's not guaranteed that every healthcare system will agree, but it is guaranteed that if we put the money forward, that we will have put our effort to trying to do it. And so to that end, the way we've thought about this, the way the contract is structured, is that we would be authorizing a certain amount of money for RIP Medical to pay forward post-negotiation period. And we're saying, here's up to 5 million over 2 years. And if there's more that you need, we could come back and extend up to 7 million, which is based on RIP's extensive experience, the amount that they would need to be able to address the outstanding medical debt in Wayne County.
Okay, so we can't necessarily say, we want to spread it out evenly throughout the county so that everyone's district gets at least this much money wiped out of their residents' debt.
No,
That's not how it would work.
because it's negotiations with healthcare systems,
Okay,
right? And you can imagine, let's pick a DMC. The DMC here is in the heart of the city of Detroit. Predominantly, you would imagine that most of their patient base is going to be in the city. That being said, there are a lot of folks who get care at the DMC who are not in the city. Similar to Garden City Hospital, right? They're going to be focused right around Garden City, Western Wayne. But there are going to be people who travel from other communities, right, in Wayne County to get their care. So because it is hospital-based, it's not really possible to divvy at the level of an individual, which is what you'd have to do that at the level of a district.
okay.
And look, the intention here, right, and this is the reason the contract is as big as it is because we don't want anybody left out. The intention here is to address and to wipe away all extant medical debt for folks who meet those criteria for everybody in Wayne County. So it wouldn't be the kind of thing where some folks would get left behind, right? We really will be working hard to try and wipe it out for the whole county. That's the intention here.
One last question. So you said that to be eligible for this program, the people would have to be resident of Wayne County. Have we determined how long they have to have resided in Wayne County?
It would be at the time that they had healthcare.
Okay.
Yeah,
Would they still have to be residing in Wayne County?
that would impose a tremendous bureaucratic challenge to do because you'd have to then verify everybody's current address from the time that they got healthcare.
Okay.
And I
so
think it would-
someone could be living out of state, but as long as they were in.
When they were in Wayne County,
now and
they
got
incurred medical.
healthcare, They
And
could still get
look,
there.
I wish it would be cleaner, but to Commissioner Marecki's question about overhead, that starts to impose tremendously more overhead than it's worth. So
Okay. All right, that's all my questions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Vice Chair Pro Tem Baydun.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Dr. Abdul Sayed. As a real estate broker for over 3 decades, I can tell you the effects of medical bills on one's credit report and how it impedes their ability to purchase their home. I go through this every week, it seems like. I was able over the years to also negotiate on behalf of clients and making settlements. This is very interesting. What will medical debt resolution, when they make an agreement on behalf of Wayne County resident, for example, hypothetically, let's say this resident has $5,000 in medical debts. How will they report this to the credit report? Because it's very important.
Yeah.
Is it gonna say fully paid and satisfied or paid in full? Because short of saying something to that effect, it still will drag the credit score down. It's kind of important if you can negotiate that to be part of the agreement with the debt collectors, that they have to say fully paid and satisfied.
yeah, so that is the end outcome that we're after here, to get to fully paid and satisfied. And that is the outcome they've been able to have in other communities that have done this. So it literally is expunged as if it was paid, because that's what we're doing. We're literally paying it. We're paying a negotiated rate, right? So we're not paying the whole thing in full, but we are paying it. We're authorizing RIP Medical to pay it on behalf so that it meets paid in full.
Because some of them report to the credit bureau settled for less the amount owing. They put that on the credit report. That's why I'm saying insist on this terminology, paid in full, fully satisfied, something along that line. Because many of them, they say settle for less the amount owing originally.
Yeah, if Keith was on the phone, he could speak specifically to that.
Yeah.
But I can get you a follow-up.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Khalina.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll pass, and I'm not sure of the questions I have today because I got no paperwork in front. So I'll see the paperwork and ask my questions in committee. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Kinlock.
So this is my only hesitation. I know we voted on sending it to the Health and Human Service Committee. The fact that we don't have anything in front of us, the fact that I have questions, all of us have questions. This is a monumental policy that is going to be implemented by the county, something new. That's why I think since I've been here, it would be probably remain best in the committee of whole, because we all have these questions. We all don't serve on the Health and Human Services Committee. So I know we voted on that motion to send it to the Health and Human Service Committee, but we all have questions. We don't actually have anything in front of us. And if the maker of that motion would, be so kind, because I think it should stay here, because I have a lot of questions that Keith is not on the line available to answer those questions. So if we could, just keep it here in committee of whole, because we have a lot of questions. So with that, I would like to make a motion. I don't know if parliamentary, yes.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
so do you mean another meeting of the committee?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, right. Not today
Yeah.
at all. We don't have like this. So parliamentarian, is it relevant to how would we do that way of reconsideration of the previous motion, or what would be appropriate?
Madam.
So
Counsel.
through the chair to this honorable body, I'm gonna first start by apologizing. I didn't realize at the time we took the motion to refer that not only we don't have the item, we actually returned it to the department. So we have nothing.
So right now,
technically
it's not
before
even
the
the floor
commission.
to return.
Right.
Thank you. You
So-
missed that part.
Right, so
Yeah.
what I was going to say at the end of the discussion was that we would consider that to be a motion of intent, which would still be appropriate for the body to advise the chairperson of your intent of where you wanted it to go. So I still think the motion could be appropriate, but understand it would have been a motion of intent. So my intent was to clarify that.
Oh.
That being said, with that motion to intent on the floor, if you would like to reconsider that, we can definitely do so if the desire of this body is to keep it in COW and have another COW meeting to have that discussion.
Madam Chair, move that we reconsider the motion for referral to the Committee of Health and Human Services.
Is it a reconsideration or just another motion to refer to Kyle? Or do
I
we
think
do
it's
both?
I think it's kind of both.
Okay, reconsideration. Okay, so your motion,
Make
sir?
a reconsideration and
Right, okay.
move
So the
to-
motion is to reconsider the original motion to move to Health and Human Services, and to move it to another cow. That's the motion.
I'll support that.
Okay, supported by Commissioner Bob. We'll do a voice vote. All in favor of reconsidering the original motion and moving the item to cow instead of Health and Human Services. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. That was Knizik, nay. I think everybody else said yay. Thank you, sir. All right, thank you. So that being said, do you have a question? Commissioner Kinlock?
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner
No.
Knizik.
Madam Chair.
Yes, you're
I-
after Commissioner Knizik.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
And then after that is Clark Coleman.
If
Okay.
we're gonna talk about the next cow, I'm done asking questions, I guess.
You good?
Yeah, thank you, Madam
Okay.
Chair.
All right, Commissioner Baker McCormick?
So you talked briefly about the 5 million, but then you mentioned 7 million. Is that in addition to the 5?
It would be structured as a potential extension.
Okay, so in
Two
addition,
extensions, sorry. Yeah.
okay, in addition, so 5 million,
Up to 2 extensions by $1 million each.
okay. And
So so we said, I'm sorry, additional 2 million by extension, forgive me for that. So it would be 2 years, $5 million. Okay? And then the ability to
year, $5 million?
be $5 million over the life of 2 years.
Okay,
Okay? With, I believe it's an option to extend for an additional 2 years for an additional $2 million.
Okay, total 7
Total
million.
of 7, yeah.
That's what I was trying to.
Sorry about
Right.
that. So
Total
5
7
over
million
3 years,
over
yeah.
2 years.
Yes.
Okay.
No,
that-
it would be total of 7 million over 3 years.
Oh, 3 years.
5 million over 2 years.
Okay.
Okay. All right, just wanted to clarify that. And you also talked about how the medical companies, I guess this is an agreement to wipe out debt for individuals. Do we know how much that debt looks like in whole?
So the estimate's about $700 million.
Okay, so we're only gonna wipe out small.
No. So the way that this works is that the moment that debt is not paid, the value of that debt to the debt holder goes down.
Mhm.
Why? Because there's a high probability it never gets paid. Does that make sense?
All right.
So on the market, if you're buying debt, which is a weird idea, but there are whole companies that buy debt, right? And when they go and buy that debt, they don't buy it at the actual value of the debt.
Right.
They buy it at the value of the debt based on the probability that that debt ever gets paid, right? So if I hold $10,000 in debt and I only think there's a 50% probability it gets paid, the value of that debt is $5,000, not $10,000, even if it originated at $10,000. Does that make sense?
Right.
So at this point, you're talking about very old debt that RIP can work with these organizations, and they usually buy at an average of a penny on the dollar, which is why we are proposing the sum total, if this were to be accepted and extended, of $7 million to wipe out 700 million. Does that make sense? So it's not that we're just wiping out some very small amount of the debt, right? And feeling good about ourselves and patting ourselves on the back. It's that the economics of debt make it so that an organization can potentially wipe out debt, which is a life-changing thing for somebody, right? At a very, very, very low rate because the value of that debt goes so low. And to be honest, medical debt is probably the worst kind of debt to buy, right? Because most of the time, if you're incurring medical debt, it's because you absolutely had to, right? And so in that circumstance, it means that the value of that debt, the probability it ever gets paid is so low that you can buy it at a very, very low rate.
So we're anticipating that we can wipe out all of Wayne County residents' debt. Is that what we're?
As we say in my
anticipating?
tradition, inshallah. That's assuming God willing. Yeah. That's assuming that the health companies are willing to enter into these
And just to clarify, and they meet that criteria of for 400%
yes.
poverty. They have
That
to
be
meet
everybody,
that.
Oh, yeah,
right?
definitely.
And so if you know,
individuals that
sure, like if you're a fat cat, you took a bunch of medical debt, and you're just not gonna pay it.
Oh, no.
Or
We're
a
not
medium
paying
cat
you
like
now.
me don't have the money to
Yeah.
pay it, but I'm not, but I
Mhm.
wouldn't be in that, it wouldn't
Okay.
be us, it'd be those who are.
And we talked
Poverty
about
level.
the airport parking taxes, and do we know the total of how much we have
Yeah,
in
so
that pot?
we're working to get that information to
We
you.
don't have that.
And
Okay.
in full accounting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. A
Point
Commissioner
of order,
Clark
point of
Coleman.
order, point of order,
Um,
please, Madam Chair, point of order.
Excuse me. Kenizi,
I apologize, ma'am. It wasn't personal, Ms. Clark Coleman.
what's going on?
My question I wanted to ask was if we just took,
You gotta go back to the bottom of the
my
line, sir.
apologies, I'll defer to the,
I will put you
to-
back.
to- my apologies, Commissioner Clark Coleman. Go right
Commissioner
ahead.
Clark Coleman.
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Okay, so my question was exactly what you just explained about will that amount cover it? So you did answer that question. My next question has to do with, is this if a person has their debt written off, is that a one-time action? Say they get sick again and go into the hospital and during this 3-year period and accrue another debt.
It is a one-time action. So you could imagine a scenario where RIP Medical enters into an agreement that would wipe away, we'll just call this person Joe's medical debt. And then the next day, they enter the agreement, they sign the agreement, their debt is wiped clean. The next day, Joe has a trip and fall and Joe goes to the hospital and incurs a $3,000 debt. Joe now owes $3,000.
Okay, now you can speak.
Thank you.
Commissioner Kniezek.
Madam Chair, we just took a vote to have another COW meeting,
Yes.
to have the analysis completed. I would ask, I'm not smart enough to know how to ask it, but I would ask that we end the discussion and move forward with the agenda today.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And again, genuinely, no disrespect to Commissioner Clark Coleman. I do apologize.
Thank you, sir. Well, you were the last one on the list. So I don't know if there are any additional questions. Let me ask this, Doctor. Did you have representatives from the company here today?
He was on the phone.
Oh, no, that's Keith on the phone.
Keith on the phone.
Oh, sorry. We'll be better next time, Keith. Okay, thank you. One more question, then we'll move on. Commissioner Anderson?
Thank you. I just wanted to ask if you would revisit the question about the funding, the mechanism, the percentage wise, what you were saying about ARPA dollars, post-ARPA dollars, and indigent care. How much do we have right now that's sitting there in indigent care that's unused?
So we're working on an analysis for you,
Okay,
and we will get that for
so
you.
we don't have that.
Yeah. Did you want to know the percentage? So it's 87% indigent dollars.
Right.
And 13% post-ARPA dollars.
And the post-ARPA dollars would be taking from what? These are
So that would be
non-committed?
the budget that was articulated and driven for health. It would come out of that. Yeah. So I mean, I don't want to use the technical term of committed, but when this honorable body voted about holding a certain amount for health, this would come out of that amount.
So not additional.
Not additional.
Okay. And as far as bankruptcy, when an individual has to file bankruptcy because of that medical debt, how does this affect them? Are they off that list of being able to have their debt wiped out and reverse bankruptcy, or?
I'm not an expert in bankruptcy law, but to my understanding, when you go through bankruptcy proceedings, the court's process is to address the final outcome of that debt. And so let's say you use Joe again, and the day before Joe has his medical debt relieved, Joe finalizes his agreement in bankruptcy court such that Joe never owes debt anymore. Joe would not be included.
Okay, thank you. Thank you,
Okay.
Madam Chair.
All right. Thank you, Doctor. We
Thank you.
appreciate it. We look forward to further discussion once
Another
we have
vigorous debate.
some,
No,
once we
thank you.
get some information in front of us. Thank you so much. All right. Next item, Madam Clerk.
Item 3, presentation by the Economic Development Department.
All right. Was that November? Thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah.
So.
Good morning.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. I think it was November when we had our last cow, and we had Mr. Schenk before us and going over ARPA, SLURF, general fund, all of that good stuff. So I told you all at that time that we would have another meeting, and there's more information that has come to fruition since that last time that we met. So this is an update on where we stand with projects, with funding, with what the future entails. So Mr. Sheikh, if you could go ahead and introduce yourself and your team.
Absolutely. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. My name is Hassan Sheikh. I'm the Director of Economic Development.
Good morning, Sean Farrell. I'm an attorney with the Allen Law Group.
Good morning, Rob Whittigan, Chief Deputy Financial Officer, Wayne County.
Okay, welcome.
So for today, we appreciate and are very gracious for the opportunity to come to you guys with an update on ARPA/SLURF as well as the general fund special account projects. That is what we're going to be referring to, the post-ARPA dollars that was mentioned earlier. We're going to be referring to those as the general fund special account projects. As you guys voted in January to take the 179 million approximately and put that towards, at that time, revenue replacement. We are now, again, just wanted to make sure I flag for you all, that is what we are referring to when we state general fund special account projects. We've made a great deal of progress in regards to oversight and performing due diligence to resume that not only are we to make sure that we're not only in compliance, but also that all funds are accounted for. And that is what we wanted to make sure that we speak to you all about today. From the last COW meeting till today. At the last COW meeting, I did give you guys the head warning before that meeting that we're still in the middle of that process. Now, we are further along in the process as it is an ongoing process, but we are much further down the line than we were at our last meeting in November. With that, I would like to yeah, the slide shows should be, the slide deck should be in front of you. We had it for folks to see, but it is in front of you. So everything that we're going to be talking about is in the slide deck in front of you. At this point, I'm going to pass it over to Rob Whittigan, our Chief Financial Officer here.
All right, good morning. And for my conversational points, I will be on the slide that has the large number 1 in the top left corner. So I'm going to give you a recap of what we've done to date with SLRF, which many of you that sit on Ways and Means will probably be tired of me repeating myself. But I also want to give you an update on top of that from the U.S. Department of the Treasury. And then I'm going to hand it back over to Director Shake to discuss the project. So the first number there, $339,789,370. That's the full award amount the county received in what we call SLRF dollars. And the county has either obligated or spent all of those dollars. And I will explain what I mean by that. The $159,919,115 represents what has been obligated for batch 1 and 2 projects. Those are still considered SLRF, or I could call federal funds, and thus they are subject to all U.S. Department of Treasury rules and operating requirements. The $179,870,255 represents obligated or spent dollars in the eyes of the United States Department of the Treasury. As in, these are now freed up general fund dollars, or as directors calling them, general fund special dollars. And they are placed in the Special Capital Projects Fund 499. They are no longer tied to U.S. Treasury rules, and which alleviates our reporting requirements to the U.S. Treasury for that group of dollars only. To summarize, they're general fund dollars that will be used in the spirit of ARPA, but now we can focus on administering the most impactful and beneficial projects without having to compromise due to U.S. Treasury imposed timelines.
Okay, let's stop right there because I'm going to take this super slow. Does everyone understand the dollars on this page? The total that we received from ARPA, SLRF, what we've already obligated, and then what we voted to put into the special account, that 179. Are we crystal clear on that? Okay, next page.
No, I just have a couple points, but honestly, I can't do it better than the chairperson just did. But to summarize the 179 million in a high level example, think of, we had 179 million in eligible government expenditures. The U.S. Department of Treasury essentially paid the bill, which then freed up 179 million of our expenditures that you all voted and approved to move to Fund 499, which will be used for additional commission-approved projects. And that was, as I mentioned, accomplished through budget adjustment 2023-35-286. So now we can pivot to the new projects, keeping the spirit of ARPA alive, with the focus of administering the impactful, beneficial programs. So it's all about process, compliance, and performance. Now, kind of pivoting to U.S. Department of Treasury, just as recently as November of 2023, U.S. Treasury provided additional guidance on what it means to be obligated. So to say, even U.S. Treasury is constantly evaluating this program, and it's ever changing. However, on Wednesday, January 31st, myself with Shantika Bullard, who is the M&B Director of Grants and Compliance Management, met with the U.S. Department of the Treasury. They reached out to us and via email, and so that they were looking to conduct outreach with recipients to better understand recipients' progress in obligating funds prior to the December 31st, 2024 deadline, as well as listen to any anticipated challenges and plans for addressing those challenges. So I would like to note we received kudos from the U.S. Department of Treasury folks on the call. They said it's clear that we've thought out how to administer this program successfully. And they were keen to point out that they appreciated our thoughtful planning to include transformative projects, which you all have voted on, as well as our strategy to utilize the government services or revenue replacement category, which allowed us to obligate and expend the $179 million. They even went on to give us guidance for how we can handle any excess funds from communities where, say, a project comes in under budget, and maybe funds need to be returned to the county due to the timelines, because again, the first batch of dollars is still under U.S. Treasury timelines. So in my opinion, in our opinion, it was clear that they are invested in our successful operation, and we're very pleased to hear that we have fully obligated the SLRF funds, all $339 million ahead of the December 2024 deadline. So now I'm going to hand it back over to Director Shake to go over the projects.
Thank you, sir. No, so it was wonderful for us to hear that the highest level of government that oversees this is happy with the work that we are doing and has said that we are doing a great job in how we're administering it, our thoughtfulness around it, and also gave us kudos in the fact of our due diligence and our attention to compliance and making sure that this entire process that we've been coming to you guys and talking to you about wasn't for anything. It was worthwhile, and we are now in a place that we are looked at very favorably from the U.S. Treasury. If we can move to the next slide. Wanted to talk to you guys just to kind of go over some of these numbers here with you all, and then I will pass it to Sean to kind of talk to you all about a little bit as a high level of the process that we've been talking to you about, but what went into that as well.
Are you on page 2 or 3?
Slide 2.
Okay.
As you see here, we have a breakdown of what makes up the $159,919,115. You have the administrative and compliance and oversight, which makes up $6,969,580. Then you have batch 1, which totaled 15 projects. There is an attachment in your packet that you can see that we've attached that breaks down all of the projects for you in batch 1, batch 2, the amount that was obligated, as well as which commission district that it touches. So that way it's very clear that all commission districts in Wayne County have up to date been touched and been positively affected and impacted by ARPA and SLRF projects. And, so you have 15 projects in batch 1, 11 projects in batch 2. Batch 1 totals $98,700,910. Batch 2 totals $54,248,625, bringing the total amount again to $159,919,115. Of those projects, 3 have been completed, and the remainder of the projects are currently underway. As Rob mentioned as well, part of the process that we were vetting when we were bringing projects forth in front of you, as well as when you guys voted on them, these projects, these municipalities, these entities, they provided us with a timeline for their completion. We have project managers assigned to each and every one of the projects who have regular communications with these project needed or anything of that sort, we will know, and we will make sure to bring that back and forth in front of you all. To this point, we have 3 projects completed. Again, the remainder are still underway. With that, I would like to pass it over to Sean to talk to us a little bit about the process that we underwent to make sure that every dollar was accounted for and everything was highlighted.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
So I want to start with something that Director Shake has said in the past, which was everyone here who's working on this program now parachuted in somewhere between A and Z in the process. And when you do that on a large federal program, especially one with hundreds of millions of dollars, you have to do extra work because you have to look retroactively at what was done, comb through everything to ensure compliance. And compliance with federal dollars means that not only are we staying compliant with local and state requirements, but we have now the added burden of all the federal requirements and federal laws that are now applicable. So this becomes a complicated and time-consuming process. As we were leading up to the $179 million budget adjustment, there was a tremendous amount of work across various departments at the county to ensure compliance, to comb through every expenditure, ensure that we are meeting Treasury's requirements and also county processes. On top of that, we've had to keep all of the projects moving steadily in the present and projecting forward now on two sort of bifurcated timelines, one under the Treasury timeline and now the second under the county's timeline. So this has been a strenuous, process. We've done it with due diligence. It's time consuming, but absolutely necessary. And so what we've been doing over the past year is not only vetting everything in the past, but building out our own processes to ensure that not only are we compliant going forward, but we're doing it as efficiently as possible, as cost effectively as possible to ensure that, the citizens of Wayne County have as much of these funds for projects as they can get. So thank you all.
If we can move over to the next slide. Thank you, Sean. Slide number 3. So that, the past slide talked about the past dollars, ARPA, SLRF. Now, let's talk a little bit about the general fund special accounts projects, which you all formerly knew as revenue replacement, and the likes. So the general fund special account, the approval that you all gave in January officially was in the amount of $179,870,255. We have, out of that account, there have been 3 projects already brought forth before you. The Livonia project for $8 million. RISA, which covered mental health services and support to K through 12 students, mathematics achievement and literacy outcomes in the amount of $13,495,129. And Just Air Solutions, which was out of the health bucket that came out of the $60 million that was allocated over there. So $2,107,550. So the total balance now comes to $156,267,576. Now,
What is the Just Air Solution again?
Just Air Solution was a project out of the air
Oh,
monitors.
yeah,
Yep, out
okay.
of the health bucket.
right.
Yep. So these 3 projects were the first ones to kind of come through and utilize the process of the general fund special account projects. We are still making sure that as we're going forward, we are now switched into the gear and the mindset of utilizing these dollars underneath the general fund with the special account attached to it. So there are the contracts and the verbiage. There's a lot of due diligence that we've been doing to make sure that everything is done appropriately. If we go to the next slide, please.
Madam Chair,
Sure,
can I just add a quick question?
Ms. Murphy?
So these, it was mentioned that these projects would be under the county time guidelines then, right? Because of the other pot. So
So-
are all these people aware of what their guidelines are?
So the county guidelines, just to clarify what the county guidelines are, we don't provide a guideline or a timeline, right? The timelines are provided to us. And the timelines that are provided to us is part of the vetting process in which when we are then deciding on the projects. At the end of the day, if someone brings us a project and says we plan to finish it in 10 years, compared to 2 years, that goes into our decision-making on the project and the viability of the project. So we hold accountable, not only in batch 1, batch 2, and now the general fund special account projects that are going to come forth in front of us, we hold them accountable to the timelines that they provide to us. Yep.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Kinlock?
Yes, I recalled there was a few questions. I think one came from Commissioner Anderson asking, so what are the guidelines? What are the, how are the potential, how will the potential folks that's going to be receiving funds out of the special project fund, how they're going to understand the guidelines? Will the county have a set of rules? Since we're not under the ARPA law. And so what I was going to say is, I think that you had mentioned to us at that time that is part of the due diligence, and that Corp Counsel will be, is working out the framework of what those guidelines would be.
No, I appreciate that. And we're going to get into it a little bit more. I'll talk a little bit more about that. But in essence, the process in which we are undergoing and vetting projects as they come forth in front of us, we are not changing the way in which we are vetting the projects, in the sense that they still are required to provide us a timeline. We are still going to put them through the ringer of the pyramid that we had shared with you all: equity, leverage, feasibility and sustainability, outcome-driven results. Is there a tie to COVID-19 potentially, desired outcome, and community impact? So we're still going to be going through our process that we've been able to create to make sure that the projects that we are going to bring forth in front of you all are meeting the needs and the desires for the outcomes that we're trying to bring forth, right? Now, with that being said, when we
So it's the same then?
yeah, so
The same as required initially?
Yeah, so the values in which that we're going to hold true to these projects, we're going to hold them true in essence the same, right? But we want to make sure right now from a due diligence perspective, because we're changing it from SLURP ARPA to now general fund, that the contracts reflect the proper verbiage, as well as everything is going through accordingly. So with that, if we can go to the next slide, I'll be able to talk to you a little bit more about that. But I also want to remind folks that now as general fund special accounts, the federal guidelines don't apply. It'll be the contractual guidelines that are then agreed upon that will apply. And all those agreements will be brought forth in front of you all for approval, so you will know what the contracts look like as well. So if we could go to slide number 4, please. Now, discussing some of the priority the general fund special account projects. After the 3 projects, the initial projects, it brought us to $156,267,576. Out of the public health funding, the Just Air Solutions was taken out, so that brought that bucket down to $57,892,450. Employee benefits and compensation enhancements is a priority item for the administration. And we have a bucket aside for $60 million there, which will then bring the end balance to $38,375,126 for us to have available to utilize for future projects.
Any,
I thought you were about to.
any questions on this page? So $38 million is the balance for any projects going forward.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Commissioner Killeen?
Yes, Commissioner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For all the projects that have been submitted by the local community seeking funding, I believe you gave us a number like $1 billion or $1.2 billion, correct?
There were a lot of projects, yes.
And according to this, we have $38 million to satisfy all of those requests. We're going to have to pick out 38 million out of about $1 billion of requests.
Yep.
Is that accurate?
So it's accurate in the sense that we have $38 million left, right? And we're working out on strategy if the entire amount will be utilized for projects or if we're going to allocate certain amounts, but we're going to make sure that we're having those conversations with you all appropriately as we move forward. But we have $38 million and we want to make sure that we're being very responsible in the sense of our strategy and the amount of impact we can make with that $38 million. But at the same time, I do want to reiterate that we are now in a good place and you will start seeing projects come forth in front of you and being submitted to you as early as this month. Medical debt relief utilizing 13% of funding from the general fund special account being one of them. We will continue to utilize our fine-tuned process, which we've presented to you in the past, to make sure that we're diligently going through and vetting these projects. And we will make sure, again, that $38 million, as we come forth and get more strategy with those dollars, that you guys will be aware of that.
So trying to parse through your answer. The roughly $1 billion in requests you're referring to as projects. And in your answer, you said, well, the 38 million, there might be things other than projects, what was submitted from the local communities. And so the whole 38 million that's left here is not necessarily going to be spent on projects that are being proposed by the local communities.
So as of right now, we're taking a look at the 38 million, myself, my team, and we're taking a look at the $38 million. We're going to be utilizing it for a lot of as much as we can towards community projects. Now, whether the total amount will be utilized towards community projects or not, that is going to come down into some strategy of future thinking, forward thinking. We don't have federal guidelines on these dollars. So do we want to utilize them right now at the current moment, or? But again, nothing is set in stone in terms of where we're going to go with it. We will make sure that you guys are aware every step of the way in regards to our strategies.
So what I don't hear in your answer is, yeah, 38 million is going to go to these local community projects. I'm sure among the 1 point whatever billion, we have 38 million that will qualify. But I'm hearing you say that 38 million is not necessarily going to go to, from here on out, to proposed community projects that they've submitted.
What I'm saying is that we have $38 million left. We have many wonderful projects coming forth in front of us that are in front of us that we're vetting through. And we are going to make sure that, again, the process that we put forth, all those projects will go through. Now, in regards to whether the entirety of the $38 million will be utilized for projects or not, we are still in the process of figuring out if the entire $38 million, or if you know, for example, if we want to utilize, you know, a certain amount of money to make sure that we have money for future investments. From an economic development standpoint, all this money will be utilized for public impact dollars in some capacity, right? But what is the strategy to put us in the best place to make sure that we're viable and we're competitive, and also making sure that the community is being impacted in the most beneficial way?
Yeah. But your answer wasn't, yeah, 38 million is going to be committed to these local projects. It could be other things. Since there's not deadlines on the money, there may be other, there may be other priorities within the administration about where to spend that 38 million.
So to be clear, even at the last cow, for example, I started up the conversation with saying we're still in the middle of that process, which is why a lot of the questions that were answered at asked at the last cow didn't have necessarily answers that are now being answered today, because we were still further down in the process. We're still in the process of creating strategies. We will have answers for you down the line. I'll make sure that you have those answers, but we are going to be utilizing a large amount of money on projects. We will be, and we are, like I said, as early as this month, you will start seeing projects being submitted to you.
And to answer your question, Commissioner Killeen, no. They're not all going.
Well,
No,
I was asking
no.
that, the economic
They're
development. And are you going to submit to the commission, like, this is our plan for the 38 million? Or are we just going to be approving one at a time, and then there's going to be a time where they go, well, we're out of the 38 million, so no more for you. And I don't want to do a piecemeal, because, you know, we've done a lot of it piecemeal here. Batch 1, batch 2. And when you look at the overall, right, and the original categories that were given to us, the original buckets, they don't necessarily apply anymore, way back in the day. So are you going to be able to present to the commission, this is our strategy for the 38 million? We want so much to go to community projects, or we want to hold in abeyance for other things that the administration might have. Since we don't have deadlines, we want to hold. Will there be some sort of a document that will come to us, say, this is our 38 million strategy, instead of piecemeal?
And if you look historically, and just to answer that, yes, we will making sure that you guys are aware, and I will make sure that you guys have something in front of you. As you see, continuously, I bring forth documents in front of you guys talking about where we're going, what's been happening, and I will continue that. Ideally, what we're looking at in terms of the thought process behind strategies and which way we're going to go, which is not clear yet necessarily, but we are starting to do the projects and coming forth is, are there potential internal projects that will benefit the community as a whole? Like, for example, RISA, for example, certain projects, rather than specifically one community. But we will be looking at public impact projects with these dollars.
I just have a quick,
hold on one second. Are you all set, Commissioner Killeen?
No, sure.
Okay, to that point, and then Commissioner Anderson, Commissioner Marecki, to that point.
crystal clear in my mind, the
Yes.
$5 million that we just talked about, debt relief, that's going to be coming out of the 57 million.
Yes.
The whole thing, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Commissioner Anderson?
Not the whole thing,
whole thing.
13% of that project is general fund special accounts project. So whatever 13% of that project is will be coming out of this bucket though. Whatever dollars that are allocated towards that project from the public health funding will come out of that bucket.
Okay, so, but the 13%, is that gonna be part of the 38 million or is that?
No.
Okay, another fund. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right,
you.
do we have a list?
Indigent.
We do have a list.
Indigent,
actually.
other remain.
Okay, we have Anderson, Knizik, Marecki, Kinlock, Baker, McCormick.
Thank you.
The full lineup.
Thank you, and thanks for being here today to add a little bit of clarity. I just wanted to ask you, we've not seen, to my knowledge, anything as far as the number of projects that have been submitted lately and what those projects are that are under consideration. And does that document exist?
To my understanding, all projects that have been submitted have been supplied to commission. Darcel, am I
Have you-
correct? Yeah, so they have been submitted.
Spreadsheet, yes.
They have been provided. And if you guys would like the full list of projects that have been submitted, we can provide that to you again. 'cause
And
that
what
has been
stage
provided.
they're in as far as approval, as far as your consideration and recommendation that'll be coming to the commission?
So again, we can do some work for you and see what we can do on that.
Yeah, I'd like to,
We'll
because I
follow
know
back with you.
the last time you were before us, I think you said you were still accepting projects. Are you still doing that?
The portal has not closed. It is still open. You know, when we're looking at projects, it doesn't come on a first come, first served basis. It comes on, again, impact, equity, the full pyramid that we shared with you all as we're vetting through projects. Community impact, does it affect community-wide or county-wide as numerous communities rather than just one community? These are all things that we take into account when we're vetting through these projects.
Okay, I guess it clarifies it a little.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. Okay, thank you, Commissioner Knizik.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You said that in the next few weeks, we'll be seeing a number of projects that are coming forward. So if we've not been contacted by your office, or maybe it gets to what Commissioner Anderson was saying a little bit. If we've not been contacted by your office, is that to say that we as individual commissioners should not be expecting the next batch of projects to be impacting our districts?
No, not at all. So
when will that communication take place?
the communication for awarded projects takes place once we go through our internal process. And then we reach out to the communities, reach out to the commissioners, let them know. You know, the most recent, for example, Livonia was our most recent project that just came through according to that process. You know, Commissioner Marecki can attest to it. Once the decision was made, we then reached out to the community, and then we reached out to Commissioner Marecki as well as Commissioner Anderson to let them know that their districts were going to be getting these awarded dollars and then putting that game plan together. Just because, and also to be clear, project managers have been assigned to awarded projects, but project managers are also assigned to all submitted projects. So all the projects that have been submitted have a point of contact within our office to reach out to, and our team is very good at making sure that we're returning emails, that we're jumping on the phone call, giving them updates on where we're at. So the communication, the line of communication is always open, and we are readily communicating with all the communities and projects.
So we've had batch 1, batch 2 out the door. Is it fair to say the next round is going to be called batch 3?
No, so we're getting away from the batch terminology.
Okay.
Because batch 1, batch 2 is specifically associated with SLRF and ARPA.
Okay.
Moving forward, because we're no longer on guidelines, to you know, in the past, because we were on these guidelines, we were looking at, okay, how can we get these dollars out as quickly as possible? And so batch 1, batch 2. Now we're away from those federal guidelines. That isn't to say that we're going to sit on the dollars at all. As you see, projects already being submitted to you, and again, they're going to be coming through. But it allows us the more flexibility and freedom to assess the projects, bring projects forth in front of you all. But again, we're not going to be referring to any projects as batch. They will simply be known as general fund special account projects, and you will be provided a list of all projects that fall within that bucket. Again, there's been a special account created for these projects specifically.
So when you said that in the next few weeks, we're going to see a number of projects coming forward, we as commissioners should not expect to hear anything that's coming forward that impacts our district until you have decided that it's going to be funded.
So again,
it's just a yes or no.
So So you can expect the phone call, absolutely. But I do
When?
want to, but I do want to remind that a lot of the projects that have been submitted, commissioners have been continuous conversations with us about. So there are a lot of projects within your communities that we have been engaging with commission on about, and we have notes taken that have been provided us to by commissioners that are also taken into the process of the vetting process as
So
well.
since I've not been a part of any conversations about any forthcoming projects, I should assume that nothing impacting Dearborn Heights, Garden City, or Inkster is being worked on right now. Is that correct?
I wouldn't assume that at all.
Okay. And for the 38 million that's remaining, how do you balance, I guess? We've got some projects that are out there. I'll use the one on here that is discrete to a community in my district. I say one that's discrete because Ecorse Creek is also on there that impacts Dearborn Heights and a number of others. Garden City has $4 million to do their community center. Cost of goods, cost of services, cost of labor, we get here at some point and realize it's going to be 4.25. We've had a good conversation, and I appreciate your team being helpful on this, helping us to understand that if the cost changes, a dialogue takes place. It gives the county the opportunity to say, is the project still viable or not? 4.25, we can probably eat that, but 6.25 probably becomes unviable. So I look at this 38 and I don't actually see it as 38. I see it as there's some buffer that's built in. If I could just finish, there's some buffer that has to be built in to acknowledge or accept that some of these projects are going to run over. And of course, there's going to be some projects that probably run under. So since this isn't a true 38 from my perspective, how do you all accommodate or take into consideration that some of these projects may run over? Have you encumbered a certain value, a certain percentage, so that we know that the 38 actually isn't a 38?
That's an excellent point, and I appreciate you bringing that up. And that comes into when we're talking about the strategy of that 38. That's part of the strategy that we're talking about. That's exactly the purpose of when I'm talking about, we're talking strategy. That is part of it. Buffers for, projects that may need additional funding, or this is all part of the process, the conversation, but we're in the middle of that process to figure out what that looks like, which is why I can't answer that fully for you all right now, but we will have an answer for that as we move through the process.
So, and I appreciate the latitude, Madam Chair. Thank you so much. So when we leave here today as commissioners, none of us should think that the 38 is just 38 left to spend. It's 38 left to spend plus the buffer that is needed for the projects that have been approved already, right?
So again, we're working on the process of what that looks like, right,
Okay.
in regards to that. And I don't know if you guys want to talk about contingencies or anything of that sort.
Yeah, to the director's point, yes, we are looking at ensuring that there's contingencies for overages, and then constantly monitoring. Also, if there's especially if it's batch one. So batch 1 and 2, right, it's still ARPA SLRF dollars. If one of the projects in your communities comes way under, or construction deadline, because we live in Michigan and the weather's great, postpone the project and it's going to run up to the Treasury deadline. We are also constantly monitoring our revenue loss calculation, because we would then potentially have a situation, right, where community comes to us and says, hey, we didn't use 5 million of your dollars, here's it back. Then we have to figure out what to do with that, right? So it would have to be run through the revenue calculation to turn it from SLRF to general fund. So,
and for the projects that the community submitted, I know that the county had gone back and said, prioritize these 1 through 4, right? Are the projects that are being considered moving forward the priority projects that have been identified by the communities? Or are you looking outside of what the communities have requested and prioritized per your directions?
So again, even the way that we've organized the projects is based on the priorities that the communities have provided to us. And when we're looking at projects, we're making sure that we're not telling a community that this is more, we're listening to the communities, engaging with the communities, and what they're telling us is their priority projects, and that's how we're vetting through.
So the next round of projects that are coming in the next few weeks, we would expect to see what has been identified as priority projects amongst the communities in Wayne County.
Yes, so whatever projects are going to be submitted in front of you all, some of them will be priority projects. Others will be projects potentially that came to that are internal projects. So all the likes. So you're going to get a myriad of those, but a lot of projects that are priority projects are already included in batch 1 and batch 2, right? And again, any other projects that come forth in front of us, We are having that constant communication. We're making sure that we're vetting through that. And anything that is a priority item, we're making sure that we give it that importance, and that conversation that it needs.
And what's your recommendation for, I'll use Inkster as an example. Great community, not included on this list. I want to make sure I'm being a good advocate as their commissioner. What's your recommendation for those conversations with you all? Again, I'm not trying to be whatever, but if I'm not hearing anything from you all about Inkster, I'm assuming that Inkster ain't getting no love. So what is your recommendation to me? How can I be a better advocate for the community with you all if I've not heard from you about them or any responses to my advocacy?
I appreciate that. And, I say this continuously to all commissioners, reach out to me, have a conversation with me. I'm always open. I would love to set up meetings. I would love to sit down with each and every one of you, hear your thoughts, hear where your priorities are, hear what you're thinking, hear what your communities are thinking. Always reach out, always happy to have that conversation.
Thank you, Director.
Absolutely. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Commissioner Marecki?
No, I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Baker McCormick?
Thank you. So the 6,969,000 for, what was it? Administrative. Is there a breakdown of what that is? I mean, what we are paying for in the 6 million?
So the 6 million is a bit of a catch-all. Obviously, we conceptualized batch 1 and batch 2. They came together for approval. But we had a group of, I think, 2 projects that we call pre-batch 1 projects. They were 2 health-related projects for COVID testing. And then we had, I believe, 4 administrative, this is for consultants who are helping to administer the program, legal compliance, financial compliance. So it's 6 projects essentially that didn't have a home in batch 1 or batch 2. So we conceptualized them as this is an administrative bucket, with the small caveat that 2 of those were early health projects to get COVID testing at home and in the jails.
Okay, is there something we can get in writing with the breakdown of these administrative costs? Because I don't see them on.
Absolutely. We can follow back with you with that.
Okay.
And I also, again, want to remind folks, when you're looking at these lists, there are certain projects that are countywide that affect every single district, every single municipality, every single county. For example, you got the workforce development program, you have, the sustainability program that we're creating, you have Wayne County Parks. So we do have projects that are countywide, but I hear you loud and clear, and want to make sure that we're engaging with you all. And please tell your communities to reach out to me.
Okay, and you brought up the projects that are countywide. County parks, it's 10 million for all districts. Do we have a breakdown of what that looks like?
Yep. So
as well? I'm
Yep. So
not sure.
you should have had that breakdown when at the vote, when you guys voted it, but I'll make sure to share all that documentation with you again.
I
if-
just
if
don't
you remember.
recall what that looks like
We can-
for all districts.
We can
In
bring that back.
particular, District 6, I'm wondering what parks are being impacted by that as well. So is there a reason why we don't have a deadline for projects? Why we continue to take projects or leave it open when I think you said it was, what, 30 million or whatever astronomical amount?
Yeah, so we've been going
Well, I
back
would
and
say
forth.
for
Should
all
we shut
their,
the portal? Should we
meetings
leave it
now.
open? Should we
But-
shut the portal? Should we leave it open?
But I know
At
I
the current
spoke
moment, the reason,
with all-
why, it's been left open is with the moving forward dollars, there is no federal guidelines or deadlines on it. So before, when we were thinking about, okay, well, we have to expend this money by a certain time, then it made sense for us to shut it down. But now there's no deadline, so why shut it down to projects that
You won't go
may-
beat her up.
Election year.
Let's go beat her up. Alicia Bay.
allowing ourselves the opportunity to at least be able to see any and all
Nasty.
projects that come
Nice,
forth
nasty.
as
No, she
long as we
pushy.
have, but now,
That's
we
why
may
I
not
said
have the ability
nice,
to
nasty.
finish, but at least
Explain.
we see it. But if we can, it allows us to see the important projects as they're coming forth in front of us instead of just shutting it down. So
Okay.
that's the methodology right now. But again, we have been going back and forth with the pros and the cons.
Right.
And that is why right now.
So I guess I'm looking at the initial rollout of communities that we already have online that brought projects to us early on that have been just kind of sitting and by the wayside waiting for us to move on this in either direction. And I also believe that commissioners were told that, okay, these projects here are the ones that we're going to focus on. And so in my mind, the list that we were working from was what we would look at in the future, possibly funding. So to leave it open and continue to move other projects out and move others in, to me, it's not fair. So I appreciate the work that you're doing, and I know it's difficult to figure all of this out. But I think in fairness, we have a lot of projects that were on the table and they should be looked at before any other ones. Thank you.
You
So
want to respond
I,
quickly?
I hear you, and I appreciate the remarks. You know, I can't speak to what was done prior to me becoming director. What I can speak to is when it comes to the fairness of the vetting process, we have put together an incredible process, and as you see over time, we've put together a lot of different checks and brought in folks to make sure that not only is the process fair, but that we're hitting every area of compliance, and it's been an extensive process to make sure of that. Now, again, I've highlighted this, you know, it's not a first come, first serve basis for projects. It is based on, again, the pyramid that I shared with you all, the equity, the impact, a lot of those kinds of issues that when we're going through the vetting of the process. But I do hear you in the sense that there are projects that have been waiting. Any project that's submitted, they send us an email or they give us a call, we respond to them, we're communicating with them. Let them know if there's anybody that's waiting for some communication to reach out to us, because anytime anybody from my team gets a communication, we either set up a meeting, we give them a call back, we send them an email back, and making sure that we're having that engagement with all projects.
Right. And I understand, like I said, the process is taxing. But I do know for sure that the commissioners were told XYZ before you got here. And I know you're just kind of getting acclimated to what occurred before, but we were told one thing and now not so much. So that's my issue. Thank you.
I appreciate that.
Thank you. Commissioner Clark Holman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hassan, when you were vetting, I'm sure you said this, I know you said it. When you're vetting these projects, you're looking at how they impact the entire community. Is that what you said? Not just one little area, but the impact it has on a wider community.
Yeah, so that's part of when we're vetting a project, we're taking into account the impact. Does it, is it impacting a smaller range community, numerous communities? That's not to say that if it's affecting a smaller range that it's less important, but we take that into account when we're comparing projects, especially when we're, when you're putting dollars towards it and we have it's not a finite amount. We want to make sure that when we're talking about the most amount of impact, that is part of the vetting process as well.
So that would be what you would be kind of looking at.
Not the end all, but that is part of the piece. That is part of the puzzle that we take into account. Now, is that the defining factor of whether this is going to get awarded? Not at all. There's a lot more that goes into it, but that is something that we pay attention to.
All set?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Commissioner Clemente?
Thank you, Madam Chair. 2 questions. You said on the ARPA SLRF obligated projects, 3 of them are completed. There's 26 projects. What's the timeline again when these need to be done?
December of 2026, so about 2 years. 2.5 years.
So all these communities, these projects, they have 2 years and
2.5 years,
there
yeah.
could be, like Commissioner Knizek said, there could be some projects that are going to cost a little bit more, and there could be some communities that give this money back. So the balance is always going to be kind of, now, if the money comes back, like let's say somebody can't afford to do what they're doing or it's less, then do we have to move that money to the special fund? I think I heard you say that. I
Yeah.
just want to clarify in my brain.
So this actually was brought up with US Treasury and they asked, what anxieties do you have with the program? And I said, well, my anxieties are we live in Michigan. It could be snowing in April. People can't get their projects done. You have a deadline of spent by 2024, December of 2024. We don't want that. Or to your example, they give money back because they came in under project. So they didn't, they didn't tell us what to do, but they said, well, have you considered? And that's where we would come back to you, to Ways and Means, and do the revenue loss calculation. So there's a specific calculation I'd run that shows us, okay, let's say you've lost, according to COVID, but this calculation, 180 million, you just got to, or 190 million, you just got to check back for 5 million that can now become general fund dollars. So yes.
Okay, Commissioner Kleen?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, for back in. Did a little poking around while we're talking here. The commission received a list of all the projects submitted from the local communities in February of 2023. Have any local community projects been submitted since then? And what I'm asking is, can you share that again with the entire commission? Because if we got something a year ago, I'm sure it's not the same as it is today.
Absolutely.
And on that spreadsheet, does it indicate who the assigned person is to ride herd on that? So when I talk to my local communities, I go, oh, yeah, we know Mary Ann. We talk to her all the time.
I'll take a look I don't recall if it's on the document at all,
Yeah.
but we do have a tracker
But
for.
I think, okay,
Yeah.
that's fine, because I'll talk to them anyway, they'll know. But I think an updated list. Maybe that February 23 one's not complete for what we have today. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Marecki?
Thank you for letting me ask another question. Back to Commissioner Baker McCormick's point, under administration. Was that, and I'm racking my brain about the company that we hired to help us with this.
Guidehouse.
Guidehouse.
Guidehouse. Yeah.
Yeah, Guidehouse. So was that 3 million of that 6 million administration fee?
Correct. Well, 4 million obligation but yes, that was part of that administrative fee.
Okay, that contract ended.
Yes.
We used them to the end
Correct.
and we just didn't renew the contract.
Correct. We have two on contract now. One being Allen Law Group for legal compliance, and then the other being Ernst & Young, who they have everything from legal compliance to Treasury guideline compliance. So, and the beautiful thing about them is if I have a question, they can pick up the phone and call US Treasury and say, this is a community. So.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, that is,
One last, just,
Commissioner.
and I was gonna ask it before, but I forgot.
Last question.
So when someone applies for a project, they have to raise a certain amount of money. Am I correct? You can't just apply for a project to be a project and not kick in a large portion. Sometimes it's like half, isn't it?
Yeah, so we like to see at least we like to see contribution from not only the community, but we take a look at their stack deck to see who else is fine. Like say if it's a $1 million project, the community's putting in 500,000. Okay, we see that there's some buy-in, there's some skin in the game from the community as well. We do like to see that. Now that is something that we take into account through the vetting process. But then, there are special circumstances where, if we have a conversation with them and they tell us this is why we can't, or we make sure that we go through and we diligently we do the research on the projects. But yes, you're correct. That is favorable when we're looking at projects.
Because that was the point that I was trying to make when I spoke before, is that you have to show your commitment And not just, anyone can't just submit and have nothing and have no skin in the game. In order to be viewed as favorable, they must be able to raise or have at least a large portion of that, of the funding that they need.
That is favorable. Again, that's not the end all, right? Because we take a look at a lot, right? When we're going through a selection of projects. But it is favorable when we see a project that has a heavy investment from the community.
Okay.
All right, so this is February. We will continue these talks every quarter or so just to see what the updates are. This is ongoing information gathering, and then of course, there'll be projects that'll be presented to us in various committees to come before us at full board. So thank you, Director. Thank you to your team for being here today, and we will continue these conversations. Very important to our communities and to residents of Wayne County that we're spending this money equitably and fairly and to the benefit of our residents. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. Okay, we're almost done. Next item.
Item F, such other matters as may be properly submitted before the committee.
Okay, just before we go to public comments, let me just again apologize to those who are on Zoom for not being able to come in today. We are having technical difficulties that are not allowing you all to speak. However, those who are on Zoom want to give public comments, you're going to have them in the chat, and we will read your comment in the chat. Again, want to thank our county clerk for coming to see us today. What she has said to us does not go on deaf ears. I know the administration is diligently working for those salary increases. So to the court employees, we hear you. We know you are in dire straits over there at the clerk's office, and we hope to have a resolve in the very, very near future. So don't think that we don't hear you or understand the plight of the court clerk's office and the county clerk. Next item.
Item G, public comments.
Okay, public comments again. We're going to read them off because we do apologize again for our technical difficulties. Go ahead.
The first public comment is from Tracy Gilbert. She says, "My name is Tracy Gilbert, and I am the Department Administrator at Frank Murphy Hall. I am proud to work under the leadership of Ms. Kathy M. Garrett. I was in attendance at the meeting this morning. It was so disappointing how County Clerk Garrett was treated, and very clear that you could not care less about the staff in the clerk's office. The fact that it was stated that you were experiencing technical difficulties, and knowing there was a video that we wanted to share of the staff pleas for fair wages. You never once attempted to make accommodations to at least allow us to come back to play the video testimony. It was stated that we were only allowed 10 minutes. However, you allow other speakers on the agenda to speak longer than 10 minutes. That was slotted for us. Your actions speak louder than your words. In 45 days, we will lose more county clerks, and we will not be able to meet our statutory duties as the clerk to Third Circuit Court. You must invite her back to full board." The next comment is from President Buffington. This is President Buffington. It was mentioned that the Honorable Clerk has been on the issues of monies for 3 years for her department. I have come before this body since 2016. After my presidency, I was recognized in 2018. I then spoke of my local, the largest of Wayne County, 1659, the upcoming demise of our employees due to compensation as low as $11.80. Thankfully, the clerk herself has gotten involved. If all of the elected had gotten involved back when I did, you may have not had to compete for employees at this junction. Thank you for your time. And we have one more. There is no name, but it says, "I am also a member of the County Clerk's Administration. I also was at the meeting this morning and was amazed at what I saw. I can't believe the disregard the commission has for the employees of the county." There's another one. "As a member of the team at the Wayne County Clerk's Office, I am very displeased with each of you at the blatant disrespect shown to our county clerk related to the staff." And that's all.
Okay, thank you so much. I don't respond to public comments, but I have to respond if things are inaccurate. The clerk was not given 10 minutes. She has much time as she wanted to have, but due to the fact that we could not show the video, I think we exhausted all the questions to her, and she could have stayed as long as she wanted to ask and answer any questions, which we allowed her to do. Also, there was no video given to us prior to the meeting, which I do ask that people do so that we can set it up and have it readily available. So just to make those points clear, there was no video given to us prior to the meeting, and we did not give her only 10 minutes. She had as much time as she wanted to have. Next item.
Item H, adjournment.
Okay, the adjournment.